Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name's Lisa. Today's video is going to be a pet update and also introducing you to our brand new pets, 2 new additions. Actually, I have 4 new additions technically, but there's 2 major new additions which are a little bit different to jumping spiders and mantises that I have shown you in a previous video. If you've watched Another Day in the Life and an introduction to my pets and things in a previous video, you'll know that I have 3 jumping spiders, and I did have 2 mantises, and I now have 4 mantises and 3 stick insects. I used to have 5, and unfortunately I lost the 2 tiniest ones, so I have 3 now. But I thought I'd give you an update on the pets and show you their progress and what they look like now, because it has been a while. So now I'm just giving you an overview of all the enclosures and stuff of the jumping spiders and mantises, and just the general setup. We've got them here in this sort of like display cabinet, which we did used to have our cups and plates and things in, and Neil, bless him, Mr. Handyman of the family, converted it, so we ended up putting some heat lamps and some LED lights, strip lights round it, and it is now a display case for the bugs, for the little critters. I had to film this video in a few different parts over a number of different days and stuff, just because of things like spiders or the mantises molting, or just obviously like the changes that they went through and things. So this was filmed over a good sort of like few weeks, I think, where I was doing bits and pieces here and there, so you could actually sort of get a gist of how much they've changed. And you'll see that some of them actually look quite a bit bigger. This is PICKIT, my orchid mantis. I'll show you properly in a moment, but he has molted into an adult. He's been that way for a couple of months now. He has his wings, and Riley, who is the spiny flower mantis, the prickly one that you saw just before PICKIT, he has now actually since molted into an adult. He now has his wings, and he's completely different to these earlier clips. And as I said, I actually have 2 new mantises now, which was the previous clip and this one. That's a budwing mantis, and the one before that was a ghost mantis, but I will show you close up in just a moment. So I'm going to start with the stick insects, and they look a little bit different to probably when you last saw them in a previous video. They are quite a bit bigger. This is the smaller one of the 3 that I have left. As I said, I had 5, but unfortunately I lost the 2 tiny ones. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just the way it goes with these kind of bugs for reasons unknown. I don't know what happened. One of them had a bit of a bad molt, and the other one I actually just found one day at the bottom of the enclosure, and sadly it passed away. It was the tiniest one. But I do still have 3, and in the last couple of months or so I have actually also been collecting eggs every time I clean them out, which is about twice a week. I've been collecting stick insect eggs, so I have a little pot that I keep in the freezer, which is the most humane way to dispose of them, just to freeze them for about a week and then you can get rid of them. But I've just been collecting them all up in the same little pot and just putting them back in the freezer each time I get them, just because I don't think I want to keep any more stick insects after these ones go. I think they last possibly about a year or so, maybe several months to a year, and then they die. They don't have a long lifespan, but you'll see, yeah, they've changed quite a bit since you would have last seen them. They were absolutely tiny. This is one of the bigger ones. I've got 2 that actually look basically like this, slightly thicker and greener, and they've got like bits of red on them. And then the other one, the first one that I just showed, was a little bit smaller. So I think they've actually come from slightly different hatches. They've hatched at different times, but yeah, they are quite a bit bigger than they were. So yeah, I mean, they're super easy to keep. Indian stick insects, often you get them in classrooms, in schools and things. They are great starter pets if you want to get your kids used to handling bugs and be less squeamish about things like that. And they eat bramble, ivy, privet, hawthorn, oak leaves, even romaine lettuce if you can't get hold of any plants outside or anything. Really, really easy to keep in one of these mesh enclosures as well. So next up is Riley, the spiny flower mantis, and like I say, since filming this little segment here, he has actually molted into an adult, and he now has wings, which you'll see in just a minute. This was when he was still kind of classed as a baby or a sub-adult. Actually, this was before his final molt, and I didn't realise it was going to be his final molt. I thought maybe he had another couple left in him, but yeah, when he went through it, that was it. All of a sudden, his wings sprouted. So yeah, he looks quite a bit different to this now, which you'll see in just a minute. But yeah, he's adorable, and very, very pretty to look at, very, very cool. And they live on flies like blue bottles, green bottles, same with PICKIT, the bigger orchid mantis. And this is Riley going through what was his final molt, which, like I say, I didn't know it was. I thought he had maybe one more after this, but this is his final molt. Once they get their wings, they won't molt again. And it's the same with PICKIT. Obviously, he's had his wings for a couple of months now, and he won't molt again. And this was him when he'd climbed out of his old skin, and you can see very faintly his wings there. They do actually hang upside down for a number of hours or whatever, just to dry out. And this is the end result. This is what he looks like now. Totally different. Obviously, his body is straightened out, and his wings kind of go down past the end of his body, end of his abdomen. Very, very beautiful. Kind of almost like a butterfly, really, especially when he flaps his wings. Sometimes I see him in his enclosure and he kind of decides to test his wings out. And yeah, he literally just looks like a butterfly with the eye on the back. But he is very, very sweet, very chilled out and calm. Yeah, very, very easy to kind of handle and stuff. I mean, don't handle them every single day, but you know, sort of every maybe 2 or 3 times a week, I'll kind of get them all out in turn, depending on with the jumping spiders, whether they're going through molts and things. Obviously, I can't handle them then because they tend to hide away, and obviously it's not ideal to handle them when they're going through a molt anyway. But yeah, the mantises I probably handle a little bit more than the spiders. Just because they go through molts at different times. But yeah, you can see he is completely different, and yeah, he's very, very lovely to look at. So next up is PICKIT, my orchid mantis, and this is the very first mantis that I got. And like I said, PICKIT actually got his wings a couple of months or so ago, and sadly, once they, certainly as far as the males go, once they actually get their wings, they probably maybe only live a couple of months or so past that final molt. So as I'm recording this voiceover now, I mean, this was done sort of a week or 2 ago. I filmed this section for this video. Unfortunately, he's kind of, I say unfortunately, he's still with us, but he is kind of on borrowed time, really, because he's had his wings for a couple of months nearly now. And yeah, in fact, it's probably just over 2 months. So any extra day with him is a bonus. But sadly, with pets like this, they don't have a long lifespan. And certainly with the adult males, they don't have a long lifespan. I think the females only live a month or 2 after the males as well. But yeah, he'll probably be lucky to sort of like be kind of 8-9 months or whatever when he goes. So this is one of the new additions to the mantis family. This is Lucifer, my little ghost mantis, and he is still classed as a baby. He's still a nymph. He has actually molted since I filmed this particular clip, so he does actually look slightly different. He's a bit bigger and he's changed colour. He was sort of like jet black in these clips here when I first got him, and he is now sort of like more of a dark brown, and yeah, he is quite a bit bigger. But he still is tiny. He's probably actually the smallest mantis in my little collection. I don't think ghost mantises get very big at all. They do actually stay small, whether they're male or female. So yeah, he's a sweetie. He's very fascinating to look at. As you can see, they kind of like sway. They imitate basically a dead leaf. So that when their prey sort of like comes near them, like flies and moths and things like that, they can then just literally grab it and yeah, they chomp on it. But yeah, he's really, really cool to look at, just to watch. He's absolutely fascinating. You can see his like little eyes there, his little white eyes, very, very sweet. And I got these in these little enclosures, both him and Buddy, my budwing mantis, the 2 new additions. They actually came with these enclosures, but they have since, because they've both molted a couple of times each, they've since moved into a slightly bigger enclosure. I have put them in a slightly bigger container now because they need a little bit more space. So as you can see, yeah, this is after his recent molt, and he is a bit bigger, and he is also darker brown rather than just black. So they do tend to change colour. Mantises often do change colour when you know, they sort of go through a molt and stuff, they get bigger. So this is Buddy, my budwing mantis. He's the other new addition to the mantis collection. And again, he has actually gone through a couple of molts since filming these earlier clips. In fact, as I'm recording this voiceover, he did actually go through a molt just last night. So he does actually look even bigger, and he's gone kind of slightly paler as well. He's got a few more extra markings on. I'll try and insert a clip as well at the end of this little section of him, just so you can see what he looks like now. But yeah, he does look quite a bit different to when I first got him. And these are the two new enclosures that I have now put them in. They're slightly bigger. Lucifer is in the slightly smaller one of the two because, like I say, they don't get too big anyway. Ghost mantises, they actually stay quite small as opposed to other species of mantis.
Drink a whiskey neat. I would fall in a second if you let me, 'cause you're all that I want.
And Pickett and Riley are both feeding on green bottles and blue bottle flies because they are bigger. And Buddy, although I've given him a couple of like curly wing flies and green bottles, he is still eating a lot of fruit flies and things. And Lucifer as well, the ghost mantis, because it's a little bit smaller, is also eating fruit flies and things. And they probably will actually stay on fruit flies until maybe their next molt, and then I'll kind of obviously upgrade them full time to green bottles or blue bottles, or certainly at least curly wing flies, which are slightly smaller than green bottles. So onto the jumping spiders, and this first one is Charlotte. Now this is the very first jumping spider that I got when I first started collecting these little bugs and critters. And yeah, she's probably getting on to about 9 months old now, so she's a little bit of an older girl. They sometimes will kind of live sort of like a year and a half, maybe 2 years if you're lucky. Some have actually gone on to live just a little bit longer than 2 years, but on average I think they're sort of a year to a year and a half kind of thing. So she is an older girl now. As you can see, her bum is very, very big in these pictures because she had actually just recently eaten after having come out of a molt where she hid herself away for a couple of weeks. Charlotte is very, very sweet. She is can be a little bit skittish. She's a little bit nervy. Even when I go in to mist the inside of her enclosure with water, she will kind of often back away and sort of go and run down and hide down the back of her enclosure and things. So she is a little bit nervous, very shy. But I do still obviously take her out to handle her. I have handled her quite a bit. But yeah, she's just not as maybe willing to come out as maybe the other two are. But yeah, she is a very, very sweet little girl. She's got quite a personality on her. I love her to bits. Like I say, she was the first one that I got, so so this is Eric. This was the second jumping spider that I got, and you'll see that he's now a sub-adult male, so I think he's got maybe 1 or 2 more molts left in him. Charlotte, I think she's actually just gone through her final molt. I think she is now technically an adult female. Eric is a sub-adult, so I think he's got a couple more to go. And yeah, he is an absolute sweetie. He doesn't mind coming out too much. I mean, he kind of gets a little bit nervous when I sort of reach in and get him. He takes a little bit of persuasion, but once he's out, he just chills out on your hand. I mean, he does have a walk around, but he's just quite happy to sit there and just have a look about and clean his legs and his and give his face a little wash and things. And he'd actually been hidden away for a couple of weeks as well when I filmed these clips, and he was needing a good meal, a good feed up, because you can see his bum's a little bit skinny where he's obviously lost calories and stuff where he's come out of his molt. So yeah, I thought I would try him with a cricket. I was still waiting for some blue bottle flies to hatch, which were taking a while. So because I had a few crickets in a tub, I decided to try him with a cricket. And although he showed interest because I think he was hungry, he kind of wasn't really into it. It was the very first cricket that I tried him with, and I don't think he quite knew what to do with it or how to get hold of it. So I tried him with it. I sort of like sat there and watched him with it for about 45 minutes, and then I just decided, no, I'll put him back, and he'll just have to kind of wait, and hopefully the flies will hatch in a day or two. And they did. A couple of days later, I had a blue bottle for him, so he sat and sucked on that. He was quite grateful for that. I think he was hungry by that time. He's definitely one of those that knows what he likes. He prefers his flying food. He prefers a blue bottle. And this is the little hammock that he'd made. He molted in. they make their hammocks rather than spin webs to catch their food. They make hammocks to sleep in and little nests to sleep in. But obviously they go after their food. They actually stalk their food when they eat it rather than catch it in webs like other spiders do. Tarantulas are very, very similar, where obviously they'll grab their food and take it in and eat it. But yeah, he is an absolute sweetie. Like I say, he's very, very lovely to look at, and yeah, he's just fascinating. He's so cool. And this is him, like I say, a couple of days later. He actually has a fly. He was sucking on that. He thoroughly enjoyed his meal. So next up we have Luna. Now she is the most recent of my jumping spiders. She's about 6 months old, and yeah, she was the third one that I added to my collection. I did have her with I did actually get another jumping spider at the same time, which I think they were from the same clutch, the same hatch. So technically it was her sister, and I called her Ava, and sadly I lost little Ava when she went through her molt. I think she just had a bad molt, and I just found her in the enclosure. She died. So I should have really 4 jumping spiders, but I only have 3. But Luna is absolutely thriving. As you can see, she's sucking on her meal. She'd come out of a molt when I filmed this a day before, and she was having a wander around her enclosure. I think she was looking for food, and I decided to try her with a locust because again, the flies sort of like, obviously I was waiting for them to hatch, and yeah, unfortunately this was all I had for her. I tried her with a cricket as well a day or 2 before, and she wasn't interested in that. So I tried her with a locust. I thought, okay, I want you to eat something, because she was looking really, really skinny, and yeah, she jumped on this one straight away. I think this was a little bit sort of easier for her to handle, and the cricket was jumping around all over the place, and I think it was freaking her out a little bit. She didn't quite know what to do with it. So yeah, she gratefully took this locust down and spent ages sucking on it. She was sucking on it for about 4 hours, and then she started on the legs for another 2 hours. So she was making the most of it. So anyway, on to the new additions. These are totally different pets to jumping spiders and mantises and stick insects, and I'm just showing you an overview of the enclosure here, and I'm wondering if you can actually guess from the setup of the enclosure what this one could be. Something completely different to spiders and mantises. This one is 7 months old, and his name is Loki, and he is our baby corn snake. Totally different to spiders and mantises, totally random. This is his setup that he's got at the minute, but we will in time, in the very near future, transfer him over to obviously a bigger enclosure as he grows. But he is absolutely adorable. He's been with us for a couple of months now, so he was like sort of 5 months old when we got him, so he's like about 7 months old now. And yeah, he's very shy, as corn snakes often are. They spend most of their time just hiding away and chilling out, like sleeping in logs and hides, and anywhere that's basically hidden, out of sight of predators and things like that. And they're what's called crepuscular, where they are most active sort of at dusk and dawn, when the light's low and it's quiet. And he does come out a lot when the lights go out and stuff, and we often sit and watch him with our mobile phone torches on, just watching him go around his enclosure at night time, like obviously when we go into bed, because he's kept in our bedroom, where it's nice and quiet. It's away from like the television and the noise of the kids in the house and stuff. Yeah, he is very calm and chilled out. He's great at being handled. I mean, I don't handle him every single day. I kind of maybe sort of 2-3 times a week kind of thing. And when he after he's eaten, he eats once a week. And when he's eaten, you're supposed to leave them for a couple of days anyway, like at least sort of like at the very least 24 hours, but if not 48 hours or so, just to allow them to digest their food so that they don't regurgitate it or anything. It doesn't make them uncomfortable. But yeah, maybe 2-3 times a week on average, I kind of handle him. For sort of like 10-15 minutes at a time, just so it's not too much, not to stress him out, but to obviously keep him used to being handled. But corn snakes are really chilled out. they just they're quite easy to look after in terms of a snake. Some are obviously need more special requirements than others, and corn snakes are the easier ones out of the snakes to keep, which is why they are great beginner snakes in terms of their care and things like that. They are pretty straightforward, really, as long as you provide them with some kind of warmth, water, you feed them once a week, provide them lots of places to hide in their enclosure, and give them a lot of clutter, so that they can move around unseen if they want that. Then yeah, they're happy. They're more than happy just to sit and chill out. So on to the second new addition, and I don't know if you can actually spot him at the back. This is another little boy. He's about 5 months old, and his name is Bilbo Baggins. And he is a baby bearded dragon, or juvenile bearded dragon. And he is super cute. He is such a character. You can see him here at the front glass surfing, because he was hungry at the time that I was filming this clip. He was basically telling me, I need food. So I fed him and I left him for about an hour or so, and then I decided to give him a bath because he was starting to shed. They do actually shed their skin sort of every few weeks or so, I think, when they're young. And then I think it's every couple of months or so when they're a bit older. Snakes do that as well. I think it's every 4 to 6 weeks when they're young, and then I think it's every 3 months or whatever when they get older, or they reach adult age. And snakes will shed all in one piece, ideally, for a healthy shed. Whereas other animals like this, like Bilbo is a bearded dragon, he will shed in bits and pieces over his body, like different parts of his body his skin will come off, and he'd already started to show signs that his skin was flaking. So I decided to give him a bath just to relieve a little bit of that itchiness and discomfort, and to help his shed. And they do take in moisture through their skin. They will drink a little bit of water, or they obviously do need water in their enclosure. So obviously provide a water dish, but you possibly won't see them drink that much. So it's a good idea to kind of miss their greens, make sure they've got moisture on their greens, like their food, any little veggies and stuff that you give them, and also just to kind of give them baths to help them suck up some moisture through their skin, to allow them to stay hydrated. But this was the very first bath that I gave him. He was absolutely loving this. He was paddling around, and I only kept him in here for just over 5 minutes. I think it was definitely no more than 10 minutes, because I didn't want him to get cold outside of his enclosure. The water has to be sort of between 85 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe that is. Basically like lukewarm to the touch to us, kind of the water that you would give to bath a young baby in. So obviously not too hot, even though they like their conditions, like they bask in, to be hot, and they are originally from the desert. That's where they come from. At the same time, obviously you don't want to scald them in scalding hot water. So it should just be just lukewarm, basically. And then you just sort of give them a bit of a bath. It helps keep them hydrated. It helps keep them clean as well, especially if they have had a poo in their enclosure and they walk through it, or they run through it. Obviously you want to make sure that they're nice and clean and they don't get any parasites or any grimy stuff on them and make themselves sick. So this is a great way of getting them nice and moisturised and clean and helping with their shed. He was in here just over 5 minutes, and then I took him out and patted him dry as best as I could in a towel, just made sure I got all the excess moisture off, and then I popped him back under his basking lamp to warm up again in his enclosure. I just sort of left him be for a couple of hours just to make sure his temperature came back up again, because obviously you don't want to get them too cold. They are cold-blooded, like snakes are, and they rely on their environment to actually suck in the heat and keep them warm. So obviously they can't get too cold for too long. But as you can see, he wasn't really into being towel dried. He just wanted to run off and explore. He is quite a feisty little thing. Like when they're young at this age, that they do tend to be quite flighty, and they like to run, and they're quite nippy in terms of fast, and you have to have good reflexes with them. They're like just to charge off anywhere. I think as they get a bit older, they do tend to slow down a bit, or they're a lot less flighty than this. But he's funny. He's such a little character. But yeah, he's doing really, really well. And like I say, we've had him, we had him about 3 weeks now as I'm recording this voiceover. He is a lot bigger than what he was in the pet shop when we first brought him home. And it's amazing. We went back into the pet shop where we got him about 2 weeks after, just to get some live food and stuff for him. And his enclosure mate, which was, I think it was his brother, that he'd been in the pet shop with, obviously him and his siblings shared an enclosure. Obviously when they're young it's fine, but once they get to a certain age and size, you have to kind of really separate them because they don't do well living together. They might attack each other and whatever. We noticed that his sibling was still there, and he was so much smaller than Bilbo. Bilbo's definitely not overweight, he's not obese, we're not particularly overfeeding him, but he is obviously getting all of the food that we are giving him, as opposed to having to share it with his siblings. So he is so much bigger than his sibling in terms of like chunky. His sibling was like a lot skinnier, a lot smaller than him in comparison. It was amazing, really, just being with him every day. We could see that he was getting a little bit bigger, but we didn't really notice it until we saw his sibling back in the pet shop, and we were like, oh my god, he is so much bigger than his brother. His brother's tiny. He's definitely changed quite a lot. He loves being out, as you can see. He loves a little bit of freedom. He doesn't mind being handled at all. He will actually quite happily sit on your hand and sort of flatten himself out on your hand if you're nice and warm, and he'll just zap up all that heat and stuff. But he gets taken out sort of a few times a day, just for handling and just to get him used to, obviously, keep him used to people. And he's just such a sweetheart. He's just really adorable. He's just so funny to watch, and quite a little character. He's already starting to get personality, we've noticed in the few weeks that we've had him. And you'll see from a previous picture that I showed, where it said the next day, that was actually a big piece of his skin that had come off his back. So it was the day after I actually bathed him, and you can see it obviously did help. Although he was starting to get a bit flaky and peely, we noticed that's the reason why I gave him a bath, because I thought that would help him ease some of the discomfort and the itchiness, and it would help his skin come off easier. It obviously worked, because there was a big chunk came off, as well as lots of little pieces that were in his enclosure. Definitely worth giving them a bath and helping them with their shed and their itchiness, because I mean, when we have sunburn and things like that, if we're really itchy, it's so uncomfortable, when you just want to scratch. And obviously bearded dragons can't scratch the way other animals can, like so easily, or the way we can. You can see from his tail there, the base of his tail, it's sort of like a dull colour, where that's literally getting ready to peel off. You can see a little bit of a flakiness there, where it's moving down his body. They shed in all different pieces, as opposed to snakes, who really a healthy shed would be all in one piece. Bearded dragons, they shed in bits and pieces all over. And I also got him a cat tower for him to sit on, and this is a couple of pictures of him. You can see how tiny he is on top of this cat tower, because he is still a baby. It's more for when he gets a bit bigger. I was probably a little bit early getting that cat tower, but he definitely enjoyed sitting on that for about 10 minutes, just looking out the window and chilling out. And over the next few weeks, if you want me to do a more in-depth video on pet care and things, and how I look after them, clean all the pets out and things, I will do that. And I will go into a lot more detail about things that they eat and how I clean them out, and just general care of all of the pets. So look out for that video coming up in the next few weeks.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun.
So that is it for this pet update and new pets video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, and you want to see more updates coming up in the very near future, I will be putting those up on a hopefully fairly regular basis. So obviously give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so you can keep up with all of those videos. And from me and Loki, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye guys.
Things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.